Hey everyone! We gotta get right back into the project of this old Deutz 6006 so we can get this thing finished up. Well, I say finished up. What I really mean is get it finished enough so that I can start using it. There's still going to be a lot of things we're not going to get to this time around. Cosmetically, there will still be a lot we can do to make this thing look nice. And I know a lot of you guys would like to see that. And so would I, honestly. I've already taken a liking to this machine, but I'm just not going to have time to do it this time around. But for now, there is still a few little things we have to take care of before I can call this good enough for now. And also, if you didn't see the last video, I'm going to leave a link for that in the description if you want to check it out. But in that video, I ended off by taking this out for a drive and make sure that, things were still working. And they were, until it got back in here because it has sprung a leak. So that's where we're going to start. Now, of course, with this being air-cooled, there's not all that many things that can leak, but one of the things that can is the fuel system. And it was just fine when I was driving it around, but I noticed when it had been parked in here for a couple of days, it had left a puddle on the ground. And now it has filled quite a lot into this tray I put down here, so it seems like this hose is leaking quite bad. It doesn't seem to be from the little copper washers here. That all looks good. It's wet all the way up here, so I suspect this hose has just cracked underneath this braided stuff on the outside. But luckily, this is going to be a pretty easy fix. This doesn't necessarily have to be a braided hose, so I'm just going to replace it with some regular fuel hose. The only issue is that the little valve I have up under the tank itself to shut off the fuel flow, that valve is stuck, so it's going to be oozing out of here. We'll just put a bolt in between here just to stop this fuel while I'm figuring out this hose. They also doubled up on the washers on this one. So I was just looking around because I thought I had a set of these banjo style fittings. Well, I did, but they were the wrong size. So instead, I'm just going to cut off these crimped collars and pry off the old hose, and we'll see if we can't reuse the ones that are on here. Oh yeah. Yeah, we can make this work. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Well, I got my two ends here. Now I am going to be a little bit different, and I'm only going to run one copper washer on each side of this. Well, it turned out I actually did have a little bit of braided hose in this size, so might as well use that. There's not really any fantastic way to run it. It's kind of just going to have to dangle along like that. Yeah. Some new seals on there. Oh. Right, that should do the trick. Might actually tie it up right over here. Yeah, let's do that. Just gonna tie it to this overflow tube from the pump, just to keep it from dangling around too much and also tuck it up a little bit better. Right, well that's our fuel leak taken care of. Well, it may have an air pocket in it now, but we'll see about that when we go to start it up. Now the next issue that I have is that the parking brake is not working. And that's an issue that I also had on the old Deutz I had years ago. The parking brake didn't work on that either. And back then I thought, well, it's not that important. It's just a parking brake. I could just leave the tractor in gear and that will hold it just fine. But I very much underestimated how often you have to get out of one of these tractors while it is running. especially if you're trying to back up to hook onto some kind of tool back here. And you have to be fairly accurate because you have to line up these attachment points back here. And if the thing you're hooking up to is not on even level ground, which, let's be honest, it never is, that tractor is going to be rolling as you get out and you will miss the mark back here. So again, you could turn it off and leave it in gear, but then your hydraulics won't work, so you can't work the lift back here. So it really becomes quite bothersome to try and do anything. So I would really like to get the parking brake working. Now luckily it is a pretty simple mechanism. Well, there is a lot of levers and linkages, but overall it is pretty simple. So you pull this handle up towards you, that is going to pull on this lever down here, bringing that up. That comes through right here to another lever up under there, and that is pulling this rod down to the brake, applying them down there. And there's also a shaft up there that goes through to the other side, applying it over there. And I think my issue is right up here, because this stuff down here, it does move, not a whole lot, but that's because it can't move this linkage rod right here, but all that stuff down there seems to be free. So I think my issue is right in here. It does have a little grease fitting that doesn't look like it's seen grease in decades. But in the last video, we did also clean out this whole area. All of this was completely covered in dirt and rat nest and stuff. So I suspect this has been holding dirt and moisture, and it might be rusted in place in there. So let's try and see if we can break this free. Well, there's not a lot of room to get me and the camera in here, so I don't know how much you guys can see, but just gonna pry on this. See if we can get it moving, and we can. It is coming up, but it's not exactly smooth. But with a bit of luck, I can work this back and forth and lubricate it a bit. Hopefully we can get it to move a little more freely. Now that I know it will move, I'm just gonna take this out of here, if I can. That way I can spray some lubricant directly down in there. Also, I'm gonna wanna replace this anyway. Been a long time since that was grease, but it's not pure rust either, so that's a good sign. Get some stuff in here and we'll just start working it back and forth. This might be a bit more difficult because I have to turn this handle to unlock it while I pry it down. Oh yeah, we're getting there. I could not pull it from up here before. Well, it's already usable, so I'm pretty happy with that. Gonna put a new fitting in here so we can pump some grease into it and try to work that in there as well. Oh yeah, it's a lot easier now. Very cool. Well, it seems I got lucky, and this turned out to be just another easy fix. I was honestly expecting that I would have to disassemble all of that and get that little through shaft out of there and clean it all up, but seems there's no need, so hey, I'll take it. And now that we have the grease gun out anyway, I think I'm just gonna go over it and grease all of the fittings I can find on this machine. Now, I haven't greased this thing yet, and I know a lot of you have been saying that I should do it, and I'll just let you know that it was my intention to do it all along, but there was no reason to start out with that because I knew I was gonna have to disassemble some things, so I would just be messing around in that fresh grease. So there's a reason I waited till now. This one is just covered in dirt. Doesn't look like any of these fittings have been getting grease for decades. Now don't worry, I'm not going to go through and show you every single fitting on this machine, because there is a lot. It is on this, as it is with most other old machines, that on pretty much every single moving joint and little shaft, there's going to be a fitting, so there's quite a few to get through. Yeah. This one's also dead. So all of these that are broken or just really rusted like this one, or otherwise won't take grease, I'm just going to go over and replace them. There's room for a lot of grease in there. Oh, there we go. That's definitely not been greased in a while. Well, with all that sorted out, we can finally go ahead and focus on the last major part of this project. Well, at least for now, which is going to be all of the stuff we have going on here on the back, with the missing hitches and 3-point link and hydraulic hoses and all this stuff. We have to get this put back together and get everything in the right place. I think we're going to start with this hitch because we already have this all straightened out and sorted out, so it really should be a matter of just bolting it back on. And as I recall, we have to start with this. I did go and get a bunch of new bolts and stuff for all of this down here. For those of you that might not remember, this was missing like half the bolts and the other half were just about to fall out as well. I'm giving it just a little dab of Loctite as well because, yeah, as I said, the old bolts, they were falling out by themselves, so don't really want to repeat that. It's going to be easier to get this in here right away. It just started raining a whole lot, so that's the noise you're hearing in the background. Well, it's gonna work for now, but I'm really not super happy with how it's mounted back here. Even though we got everything straightened up and it's good enough, I don't really know why they mounted it this way in the first place, where it's hanging from these bars up here. There's absolutely no reason for this to have swivel points and being able to move on this end. If anything, it's just gonna make the whole thing more unstable. But I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on this right now, so we're just gonna leave it as it is. But when we get to round 2 of fixing up this tractor, I'm definitely going to change all of this and the way it's set up on here. But the next thing that I should take care of is this missing arm right here. Well, this one's not missing, but it is over there. It's just a limiter or sort of a control arm to keep these in place so they don't get out into the tires and keep banging against stuff. So I think we're just going to copy what they have going on over here and we'll make one for that side. But I'm going to take this off because there's a few things to fix on this as well. Well, for once the pin actually came out. That's nice. That would have been a bad place to have to go and cut it. Well, there's one bar that I do have. It only needs some repairs to this one pin because it's falling out, so I kind of want to weld it in place. And also this hole where the safety pin comes through, that's almost worn out completely, but it actually doesn't need to be all the way out there. I marked it out and it's only coming through this much, so I'm just going to drill a new hole and cut out the old bit, and we should be good to go. Might also set it in there a little bit deeper, just to give myself a little bit more to work with. Yeah. that should definitely do the trick. There's no reason to overbuild this thing. It's just the kind of piece that is hanging around and just taking a lot of abuse. Right, we'll get this one fixed and also tighten up the tolerances a bit. When we get some new hardware on this, that's going to be a pretty good fit right there. Now, I'm not really sure if these things are original to this tractor. I don't think they are. I've never seen this type on these. And also the remains of the other one over there doesn't look exactly like what we have going on over here. But honestly, this thing, it does work just fine. The way it's moving is in a slot up here underneath the axle. And we can also move it down to this hole underneath. And that is going to lock the arm in place so it can't swing around too much. I think I mentioned that the point of these is really just to keep these arms from swinging too much, but not just the arms, also your tools and implements that you mount back here. It's to keep all of this in line. And if you're pulling something like a plow that would tend to sort of walk off to one side, that's where you can lock it in place like this. But most other old tractors I've seen, they have chain links in here that you can tighten up. Honestly, all of this is not terribly important for what I'm going to be doing with this tractor, but I do want a bar kind of like this over on the other side just to keep that arm in place. So let's make a copy of this one. Well, I've been looking around for a bit for some steel I could use to make another one of those, because even if it's not original, it would be nice if they at least look the same. But then I remembered that I have these things sitting over here in the corner. These are some big mounting brackets for something off of an old tractor, and I've been saving those just for such an occasion. They've been here for years. This is some 20mm steel plate, and that's exactly what I need. So I think we're going to take a bite out of one of these. Now the thing is, trying to cut this out with my grinder, that would take days, but I do have that little plasma cutter. Kind of curious to see if it can burn through this stuff, so let's give it a try. Man, this thing is heavy. Well, there's really no chance that I'm going to be able to make this kind of bend in it, so I'll have to cut it down to make it really thin and then bend it and weld it back up. Yeah, I think that's the plan. So I'm still just going to cut this out as one single piece. I can only assume that we're going to have to crank this up quite a bit. Let's try it there, see what it'll do. Right. Not quite all the way. Cranked it up a bit more. It's at max power now, so let's see. Fiddle with some more settings. Let's try again. Not quite burning through, it's just blowing it all over the place. Well, clearly it's not very happy about this. I had a feeling it wouldn't be able to go through this thick plate. It's only going about halfway at best. I did go all the way down just to take out most of it. Now, we could turn it around and try to hit it from the other side, but it's also just burning up the nozzle and everything on this at this point. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to have to clean it up anyway because it's blowing all the slack back up here. So I'm just going to take a grinder and hit it in that groove that I already made, and we'll cut the rest out that way. Let's see if that was deep enough for me to bend this. Oh yeah. Well, you know, a wise man would have probably drilled these holes before bending this at an angle. Well, that is the main bar done. Now we still have to make these pins out here on the ends, and for that I have some of these things that we took out of that old front loader that was on this tractor. They are roughly the same size, so it should work pretty well, but we do have to take them down a little bit. You know what that means, right? Yep, I am already going to be needing the lathe. Now I should just say that I only just got done filming the video of getting this thing like a couple of days ago. Now I don't know when you're going to see this, but nothing has changed between what you saw in that video and what I'm doing now. I still haven't gotten any more tools or equipment for this thing. But I have already seen some of your comments and I hear what you're saying. No gloves while working on the lathe and manual tools while it's spinning is a bad idea. And like, I do understand the dangers of this kind of rotating machinery, and even if it doesn't look like it, I am trying my very best to be careful with these things. But I do appreciate your concerns and also all of your tips. Now for this one, I just have to take this shoulder off, and also I have to take the thickness down a couple of millimeters. Oh yeah, that's perfect. We're gonna weld that in and trim off the edge here, and that'll be it. Now we just gotta do this one. Now this one is just a tad too thick, so it just has to be shaved down a little bit. Oh yeah. Now the same goes with this. I'm just going to weld it and then we'll trim off the edge here. I know it's probably not worth the effort to paint this thing. It's going to wear off pretty quick. And this steel is so thick that it's not going to rust away within the next few years anyway. It just feels wrong to put it on there just as completely bare steel. There we go. That is close enough of a replica for what I need. Well, here's hoping that it actually fits. I haven't tried it yet. Oh yeah. Well, there we go. Now the movement is a little more controlled, but still with the option to lock them in place if I need to keep something steady back here. Now the next thing I'm going to have to take care of is all of these loose hanging hydraulic hoses and couplings that I have back here. There's another one over here. I need to mount all this stuff somewhere. There's only one little bracket left on here. That's probably the one that was holding the one original hose on it. But stuff has been added to this, so we have another double functioning set of hoses here, and we have this free return. This is, if you have some kind of spinning implement, the return of that is just going to be hooked to this so it can feed back into the reservoir. I don't have a particular need for this, but it's nice enough that it's there. So we need to get all of this stuff mounted up. And there's not a whole lot of places to mount things. I'm thinking I'm just going to be using these bolts back here that are also holding this one bracket. These bolts are mostly just holding these plates back here, but I think we're gonna make a nice, simple, just angled piece and just have them lined all the way up on that. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Get this thing out of the way. Give myself some more room. And of course, all of these couplings are different brands, so they're not exactly the same shape. So all of these holders are going to be a little bit all over the place. Trying to get these lined up as neatly as I can. It's always a bit stiff to work with these hydraulic hoses. All right. All of these things are very sturdy and nicely secured in place now. And I purposely left a good bit of room in between them, so it's nice and easy to get in here and get a good grip on these couplings. This is going to be plenty good. Oh, and this return line, that was so long. I had to do a little loop-de-loop here, but we'll just tie that up here and that should be fine. I'm just going to tie it to itself in here. This hose is never really going to have a whole lot of pressure anyway, so I'm not terribly concerned about it. So with all of this stuff taken care of, the only thing that's really left to do before I can start using this whole 3-point lift back here is to make something that will hold my top link in place up here. So as I was explaining in some of the previous videos, the original mounting block that was supposed to be up here that would hold that top link, that has been taken off for some unknown reason. And I have been looking around for quite a long time to try and find that original piece to put back on here. But of course it's long out of production, so you can't buy it anymore. So I have been looking around for tractors that were being dismantled. But most of the tractors I could find, they were the slightly smaller models like the 5006 and the 4006 and things like that. And on those ones, this whole setup looks completely different, so that just wouldn't work. But I did actually manage to find a single 6006 that was being dismantled. Actually, it was mostly dismantled. It's really only a rear axle that's left, but that one piece is still on it, and I could buy that one. The only problem is that the guy who has it, he's a bit like me. He has a lot of projects going on, so I don't really know exactly when he's going to get around to dragging that thing out of the hedge and dismount the rest of it. But I do still want that piece so I can make it all original up here. But until I get that, we are going to make some kind of temporary setup so that I can use this tractor. And then when we get to doing round 2 of fixing up this tractor, then we're going to put that original piece on there. So what I'm going to do for now is what a few of you have also suggested that I do, which is to make a bar that sits in between these two vertical pieces of steel back here. So I'm going to use these original mounting holes because conveniently they are just the right size for this. So we're going to make a shaft that goes in here and through this, and it'll hold that in place. Should be plenty good. Really the only concern I have with doing it this way is because there's such a long way between these two plates, and the shaft itself is only going to be about 25 millimeters. We're going to be putting all the force right in the middle, so there is a chance that it might end up bending that shaft. But I only have limited materials to work with, so we're just going to do the best I can. I think I have something that's a little bit stronger than just mild steel, but yeah, let's call it 27. Right. Well, I did find this shaft out in my miscellaneous bin. I think this is going to do just fine. I have no idea what kind of steel this is, but it's not hardened, but it also doesn't feel like just mild steel. So we'll give this a try. It is a little bit too thick, however. Yeah, there's a bit that's going to have to come off. And you know what that means. Yep, we're back on the lathe again. It wasn't a complete coincidence that I got a lathe just now. I did have a feeling that this would be really handy for all this tractor stuff where there is a lot of shafts and pins and bolts and things like that. Now first we'll just face this off real quick. Now, because this is going to be a bit of a long shaft, I really would like to drill a little pilot hole in the middle so I could use this live center to steady it. But unfortunately, I still haven't bought a drill chuck to put into this tailstock. But what I do have is the drill chuck from the lathe out at my workplace. I borrowed this so I could try it out in here and make sure that this was actually just a standard Morse taper that was in here. And sure enough, it is. Just like that. And you were all correct, this is a Morse 3, and this is on a Morse 2 that is inside a Morse 3 adapter. Oh, and by the way, big thanks to all of you for letting me know the correct names of all of these things. It really makes it a lot easier to try and search for some equipment for this. But now that I have their drill chuck here anyway, may as well use this and make a little hole in that. Now we can bring this out a bit. Let's see. Definitely not very straight, this shaft. All right, well, I'm still learning the machine, so I could probably speed it up a good bit. That was pretty slow, but at least now we have some kind of baseline. But what I have noticed is that we got a bit of a weird cut. It didn't take all of this off, but right up here at the end, it did. And the measurement is a little bit tighter down here. But then I had a look at it, and that live center that I have right there, that is not running true. This out. I think you can even see that on camera. That thing is jumping around quite a bit. Now, luckily it's not very important for this part, but I'm probably going to want to get a new one of those. Anyway, we'll speed this up a bit and we'll get going because this is not super important for this part. It's going to have a bit of tolerance anyway. Right on 25. That should do it. Now, I still don't have a parting tool to cut this off, but don't worry, I'm not going to hacksaw it. We're going to take it out and use the grinder. But the whole thing really was shaking and moving a bit, and I suspect it's because of this thing. Oh yeah, look at the tip of that. Yeah, this thing is trashed. But other than that, I still think this worked out pretty well. Oh yeah. I had suspected that this lift arm over here was going to get in the way, and it definitely does. So just have to lift that up a bit. And now we can get this on here as well. Very nice. But just one final thing. To keep things stable back here, I don't really want this to be able to move back and forth. Normally, you wouldn't have it on a wide shaft like this. It would be something that would hold it from side to side as well. But I also don't want to drill more holes into this to put pins through it, because that's just going to weaken it even more. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut a piece of pipe, and we'll make 2 little sleeves to go on the outside here so it can't move a whole lot. This piece should be just the right size. Right, so now the idea was to put one of these on each side. Like that. Now this thing is going to stay in place. Right, well, I'm actually pretty happy with this. This turned out pretty good. Now, if I were to make this as more of a permanent setup, I would probably make these from some thicker wall tubing and weld them onto these sides, as well as some cross braces, just to support this whole shaft a little bit better. But with this just being a temporary thing, I think this is going to work out pretty well. And I know that with several pieces and with this being in the way and whatnot, it is going to be a little bit more of a project to take this thing on and off. But again, this is just a temporary thing. And for the most part, this is just going to stay with the tractor anyway. But as a final touch, let's just give this stuff a little bit of paint as well, just to keep it from rusting within the next few days. I'm just going to give this a little bit of grease just to try and keep those little pipes from clanging around too much, and also to try and keep it from rusting together right away. Right, there we go. So now all of this really should be ready to go. And I gotta admit, I'm pretty eager to try and hook something onto the back of this. I've already had this tractor for a couple of months now, and I've still not seen it do any tractor things. So let's go ahead and test it out with something. I was just looking around for some kind of attachment or tool that we could hook onto it and try out. And I know that I have an old cultivator somewhere in this hedge. Oh yeah, it's right here, or at least a little bit of it is. This thing is completely overgrown in brambles. This is some nasty stuff. Yeah, I'm not dealing with that right now. Let's go and find something else. Actually, I kind of wanted to hook up this big cement mixer. Partly because I have to get this thing down from here and get it sorted out anyway. But also with this, I could go and try out the PTO. But it's going to take the rest of the day to get this thing lifted out of here and get it sorted out. So don't think we're going to be doing that right now. Actually, I might do a completely separate video on getting this thing up and running, because hopefully I'm going to need it pretty soon. But I just remembered another thing that I do have is this. This is that big old dozer blade grader thing that I got for free with this trailer. Let's try and hook up to that. I feel like I just have to explain. I know this is not the way you're supposed to pick it up or hook it on here, but I just had to lift it up off the ground because the lift arms wouldn't reach all the way down to these lower attachment points otherwise. And this thing is really heavy, so this was just the easiest way to pick it up. This is so much easier than it was with my old tractor, just because I have a functional parking brake now. Bam! We are ready to pick this thing up now. This is working fantastically. Now I kind of just wanted to pick this thing up. I don't really have anything that needs dozing or grading right now. I don't even think we have a pile of dirt we could push, but let's just try and find something. Let's just see if we can scrape the stuff that's up against the wall right here. For nothing else, this is going to be a good test for this pin that I just made for that top link. This is definitely putting some force on that thing, but it seems to hold up just fine. Alright, well, I know this is probably not the most exciting demonstration, but I kind of had to level off this bump right here anyway. I wasn't really planning on doing grading right now. Honestly, I'm just really happy that this thing is finally able to do some tractor things again. Well, there we go. The old Deutz 6006 is now finally ready to start putting in some work around here. Now I know there's still a lot of things that need some attention on this and a lot we could do to actually make it look as well as it functions. But for now, I just need this thing working, as my plan is to start using this to help me with some construction around here. But I have definitely taken a liking to this thing, more than I thought I would. So hopefully in the long run, we will take this thing back inside and take it apart and fix up all the other little issues and actually make it look nice. But that will be a project for another day. We're gonna end this video off here, so thank you all for watching along, and I'll see you in the next one.